All right, everything you need to know about To Kill a Mockingbird Chapter 8. Hopefully you've read through Chapter 8 so we can better understand what happened in this chapter. So this chapter starts out with the weather moving from fall to winter early. Supposedly it hadn't been that cold since 1885. Mr. Avery, the neighbor, says seasons change early when kids misbehave when he's looking at Jem and Scout, which makes Scout feel guilty. So during this time, Mrs. Radley also passed away, and Atticus tells them that she died naturally, that Boo didn't have anything to do with it, which Jem wondered about. So when he went to pay his respects, he did not see Mr. Arthur. Remember, Boo's real name is Arthur. Jem stops Scout from asking anything more, because it seems that Jem has a feeling that Atticus might know more than he's saying about what they were doing besides strip poker that night, and Jem doesn't want to push it. When Scout wakes up the next morning, she freaks out, thinking the world is ending, but it turns out that it actually was just snowing. So I guess she's never seen snow before, and it tripped her out. Turns out that even though it is barely snowing at all, the kids get a snow day since it hadn't snowed since 1885. Probably what it's like for Southern Californians when they experience rain. Everyone seems to forget how to drive. So of course the kids want to make a snowman. Who wouldn't? It's not going to be easy as there's hardly any snow and it's slushy. So once they're outside, they come across Mr. Avery, who blames them again for this weather, and Miss Maudie calls them over and warns them to watch their step in her yard because some stuff has been covered up by the snow. So she's outside covering her plants so they don't freeze. The kids collect snow from her yard and their backyard so that they have enough to try to make a snowman. Now they have to build a dirt snowman first as kind of the base, and after some inappropriate terminology about the snowman they made, they cover the front with snow. And because of its big stomach, they notice that it looks like Mr. Avery, so they kind of go with this theme. They make him look grumpy, and they stick a piece of wood next to it, like the wood Mr. Avery always carves on his porch. So when they share this creation with Atticus when he comes home for lunch, he admires it, but tells them it looks a little too much like their neighbor, and they need to disguise it. So Jem goes and gets Miss Maudie's hat and hedge clippers and adds them to the snowman, so it becomes a mix of the two neighbors. So when Miss Maudie comes out and sees it, she has a good humor about it, recognizing the mix between the two neighbors, telling Atticus they made a morphodite in the front yard, which is a variation of hermaphrodite, which is a mix of male and female. So that night, after Atticus takes Calpurnia home, it drops to like 16 degrees. And in the middle of the night, Atticus has to wake up the kids to get them dressed. They know something is wrong, and from the sounds from outside, they know a house on the street is on fire. So it turns out it's Miss Maudie's house. The kids have to stand on the corner outside while the townsmen pull furniture out of the house and put it on a lawn across the street. And it's so cold, the fire engine from town wouldn't start and has to be pushed to the house. And when they attach the fire hose, the hose bursts and the water freezes. So they really don't have much at this point to combat the fire. So of note, Mr. Avery tries to come out of the second-story window. He gets stuck, flops out finally, and tumbles down the roof and lands in the shrubs. He ends up in bed for a few days. At this point, the neighbors back away since the house can't be saved and it's going to collapse at some point. Another fire truck from a nearby town, I think it's Abbotsville, shows up, but they start spraying down other houses so another one in the neighborhood doesn't catch on fire. The chaos slows down at dawn, and as Miss Maudie doesn't want to talk at this point, Atticus kind of steers the kids back home. In the kitchen over hot chocolate, Atticus notices Scout has a blanket around her and reminds her she wasn't supposed to go anywhere and leave the sidewalk. The kids claim they didn't move, and that means somebody put the blanket around Scout. So when talking about it, they remember how everyone was out helping. Even Nathan Radley was bringing out furniture. And Atticus realizes that everyone was out helping in some way and implies that Boo was the one who put the blanket around Scout. Atticus wants to wrap it up and return it with a thank you note or something like that, which causes Jem to freak out. Jem ends up confessing and telling Atticus everything from the sewn up pants on the fence to the knothole and the gifts Boo gave them, that Nathan was crazy and filled the knothole with cement to stop Boo from giving them gifts. Jem claims that Boo has been nothing but good to them, and if Nathan finds out about the blanket, that Boo would probably be in trouble. So Atticus gets it and agrees to let it slide. Everyone ends up sleeping until noon because they were up all night, and Atticus lets the kids stay home. Since their snowman has melted into a pile, they decide to return Miss Maudie's items. Although she's staying with Miss Stephanie, she's working outside and has been since like 6 a.m. She turns out to have a pretty good attitude about it, claiming that she didn't really like her house that much anyway. It was too big, and that she'd have a smaller one built and have more space for a garden. She's saddest, actually, that her house fire caused so much work and burden and struggle for her friends and her neighbors. So what do we take from this chapter? Actually, this is kind of a transitional, standalone kind of chapter. Up until now, the focus has really been on the kids and their childhood bubble. By being awakened in the middle of the night, the adult world and adult concerns intrude into the kids' world, and they stand by watching events unfold. There's not much they can do. This marks a change in the tone and focus of the novel. The adult world will more and more affect the lives of the children. Now, we do see some good things in this chapter, right? There's a sense of community as everyone comes out and helps a neighbor in need. We see more respectable qualities in Miss Maudie. We already knew she was a nice neighbor and had a good relationship with the kids. But we see this resilience in her and a concern and appreciation for others as well. Now, even Boo continues to be giving to the kids, and now we see a protectiveness of this relationship even showing up in Jem. So these are the ideas in the community that Atticus must remind the kids of when things start to get ugly in the next chapter and then throughout the rest of the book. If you have any questions or thoughts, you can put them down below in the comment box, and I'll get back as soon as I can.